Daddy is cute, Daddy is strong, Daddy is brave, and Daddy will not stop.
Hey everybody. See, Cyanophyte got hit by my automatic shout-out tool that's now integrated slightly into my stream. And I also hit Joseph Radio Joe with it. Pretty cool. I just have it set up so that it's like detecting the first time somebody who's in my list of streamers. As soon as you chat into the stream, it will automatically shout you out if you're a streamer and you're in the list. So it's not full. I have a lot more people to add to it, but hey Sib, how's it going? How you been? We're looking at some material tonight, live material I collected earlier today. So my graduate student Laura and I went to the those are actually Kaidorus, not Daphnia, but they're closely related. They're in the cledocerin family. I think. Let me check. Yeah, that's a Kaidorus. It has two sets of eyes. There's my little arrow. You see that? Do you see that? Studio Cornix, you talk, and the moment you say anything, my little thing just knows, hey, that person's a streamer, and instantly shouts you out. And I didn't have to do anything, no typing, no nothing on my end. So it's just built on an array, and it checks the text and then checks to make sure it's the first time the person has talked, and then basically modifies another array to just set it into like a binary system. It's pretty cool. Chippy Flip, I have not put you in there yet. You're gonna have to be manually shout out like some sort of a savage. How are you doing, Chippy Flip? Look at me, I have to type you in. Typing like some sort of a primate. I know. I just stuffed some people in there to test it out, and then I had my own name in there, so I was just using my own, shouting myself out in my empty channel earlier. You're doing well, you're finishing up the workday. Well, it's nice to see you. We are looking at some live material. This is for funsies, the stream is, but as always. But I wanted to. There's my arrow. That's what I've been looking for. So there's two sets of eyes, or two dark spots. I think they're both eyes, and then a little beak-like thing on Kaidorus. It's just a tiny little beak. And I think all of the little guys we're seeing are actually Kaidorus. But it's a cledocerin. It belongs in the similar group with the cledocera, with the Daphnia and Bosmina. It's the lesser known of the weird little cledocera. You'll only be here for a bit. It's Good Friday, and you're about to go break your booze fast. That sounds probably be real sad. I'm sorry to hear about your dad. I hope he's doing okay, and I hope your family's hope things are going to go okay. Also, your living arrangements are hopefully get themselves worked out sometime soon. But yes, it's Good Friday. Happy Good Friday to people who celebrate this. I have no idea. I don't remember what Good Friday is supposed to do. Sent a letter out to the lawyer today. So this is some material I collected while I was out scouting for a site for the National Diatom Symposium, so North American Diatom Symposium, that we are hosting. Indiana State is hosting, and I am the host. And so I went out to the site today, and they have a bunch of lakes there. One of them is called Sycamore Lake, and Sycamore is the mascot for Indiana State University, and it's called the Sycamore Outdoor Center. And in the pond, I found a sycamore leaf and collected it. And I thought, well, it's about as Indiana as we can get, Indiana State University as we can get. We got Sycamore Lake from the Sycamore Outdoor Center on a sycamore leaf for the sycamores. But this sample was actually collected from Sycamore Lake from a slightly different place. And what I want to do is I'm asking if Studio Cornix will do some of her fancy artwork for it, and then we'll use this artwork for the logo for the meeting. And so I'm going to send her some of this material I collected here in a Ziploc bag that was in my back seat, and we're going to I'm going to take some nice streaming images of it, and I'll save the links for this so you can always go back and look at the images that we have here, and in case things are dead by the time they get to you, you can at least look through them. And I'll probably process a little bit of it and send you some processed and mounted slides as well. But I thought I'll send this stuff out. I'll take a split of it and send you that material immediately as soon as you give me some place to send it. So, all right, let me scroll up a little bit because I've been chatting about junk and I missed a comment in here. Alt Miss Frizzle, hello. Thank you for coming back to visit with us. Public schools in my state were closed today. They were closed here as well. My daughter was home all day. I'm not religious, but thankful for those who are on days like this. Yeah, it's nice to have a day off. So the public schools here were all closed for Good Friday. My daughter had the day off, and I still had to work. But I normally teach 2 classes on Friday, and somebody else was teaching my other class today, and also next Friday. So the nice part is I didn't have to do as much work as I normally do, and then I spent the second half of my day out at the Sycamore Outdoor Center sort of scouting it out for the meeting, to make sure that it's big enough and would house everybody, and to try to figure out if we can schedule a date for it. And the date has been scheduled, which is September 21st through the 25th of next year, of this year, I mean, in the fall. And it's kind of a really nice grounds. The main room where the talks will happen is probably going to be a little bit tight, but it depends on how many people come. The meeting usually has something like somewhere between 80 and 120 people come to the meeting, so it's a pretty small little meeting, but I'm hoping to bring Studio Cornix with us to the meeting so she can present some of her artwork there and maybe do a small talk on your collection of the Ehrenberg stuff that you did this year, and you can show people the artwork and talk a little bit about your art. I think that would actually be a great, everybody there would love it. And also, if you bring prints of your art, I'm gonna guess you're gonna make some money, or at least you'll sell some or give them away or whatever, because there's people there that are definitely going to be interested in that stuff. So Let's see. Speaking of Passover, yes. Um, let's see. I'm not devout or even practicing, but you always observe Lent. That's pretty interesting. And well, Miss Frizzle says the same thing. A friend has a friend who's the same way. So if I ask, how did you become the host of the diatom meeting? By the way, did you apply or did they ask you? It's more like I was voluntold that I was going to be the host. I've been involved with the diatom meetings. The first one that I went to was in 2001. So for 22 years or whatever, I've gone to meetings, and they like to just move it to a different person each time. And they start looking around at the meeting and say, who hasn't hosted a meeting yet? And they don't make you do it, but they basically said, Jeffrey, you haven't done this yet, and Indiana would be a great place to do it. Would you do it? And sometimes people actually kind of fight for it, but nobody there wanted to do it, and so they were happy to have me do it. And as most people who have been here in the channel for a while know, my wife is also a diatomist, and I have a bunch of diatom people that I train at the university that are my undergraduate and graduate students. So it's a nice place to have it, and we have an outdoor center which is basically filled with lakes, and we can bring microscopes in, and we can set up all the stuff that people would normally have at the meeting. And it'll be a bit of a party because that's the way that the meetings go in the evenings. So it's usually like talks and posters and whatever during the day, and then a big dinner, and then we just basically hang out. There's some nice fire rings there, so people can sit around. You can go canoeing. There's lakes that are right on the property, and they have this camping. You can just camp there, or you could stay in a hotel. But they have these like cabins that are there that I think they told me each cabin holds 10 people, and there's 4 of them, so they're pretty cramped. They're just bed spaces, basically, but it comes down to a price of about $5 a night. So I think you'd be excited to be there, and I feel like they'd be excited to have you there, studio. So, and it's a lot of fun. So you already asked for the time off. Excellent. Well, you have a recording. I don't know if we ever record those meetings, but they're open if people want to come, and I'll probably post some information about it if you're nearby. And if you're not nearby, I might try to stream some of it. I don't know how people feel about having their work presented, because some of it's not published stuff yet. So you never make prints. Well, you should make some prints. I think it probably would do very well. But I don't know if we'll record the meetings or not. It's like I said, sometimes people just don't want to have their presentations, like if they're presenting something that hasn't been published yet. Yeah, it's like a camp. It's pretty cool. Hey, printmaker, how are you doing? Camping for you is 4-star instead of a 5-star. Well, you can stay at the hotels. There's also hotels that are 10 minutes away. So if you'd like to stay in a nice fancy hotel, you could. Or if you want to camp in the cabins, if you're coming. I didn't expect you were coming, printmaker, but if you want to. And then, yeah, they just drink all night, and then in the morning everybody looks really hungover and somehow sits through all the morning talks until they get some food in themselves. To be a diatomist, do you have to have access to an SEM, or is there plenty of non-SEM research to do? Joseph, Radio Joe, almost no diatomists have an SEM of their own. I am a oddity, and I can tell you that my peers are extremely jealous of the fact that I have my own SEM lab. And every one of them is always like, what kind of SEM is that? How much does it cost? And how did you get the university to buy you one? So it's pretty uncommon. Lots of diatom synergy, yeah. So it should be a lot of fun, and it's still a ways off, and it's probably going to be a giant headache. But I think because we're having it in a campus facility, I'm going to be able to keep the cost very low. So the registration would probably be like maybe $200, and that would include all of if you stayed on site, it probably would include all of the food and some of the housing for 5 days. So not bad. in terms of science meetings. You live in Texas and you feel like you never have cool stuff here. I've been to some stuff in Texas that was pretty cool. No way you're going to camp. You're going to play cards. They have a really nice little fire pits outside and picnic tables and everything else, so you could totally camp it out if you wanted to. And then you'll have to present at 7:30 on the last day. That is sometimes what happens, but I think just for clarity, for people who want to know what happens at these meetings, I'm sorry, there's just like cledocerin that have been photobombing each other constantly in the background. I haven't looked at the microscope at all. I'm just trying to keep up with chat. It's hard. They have a, you're gonna love this. They have a scavenger hunt like thing where they ask questions about people's talks and diatom things, and they have these sets of stations, and you have to run from one to the next to the next. And so you build a team of people with like a younger scientist who can do the running part and some old fogies who know all this stuff and probably were paying closer attention to the talks. And then they have like a giant race that they call the Scum Run. And then the winner gets bragging rights for the Scum Run. But it's like a scavenger hunt combined with a race, basically, and it's a blast. Belinda, hello. Excited to see some lovely samples. We're looking at some material that I collected from Sycamore Lake on the Sycamore Outdoor Center, which is where the diatom meeting will be hosted in September this year. And look, I got my my auto shout out on my Leorin board. So as soon as you came in and you start to talk, it knows that you're somebody in the list, and it just automatically shouts you out. Except for people who haven't been put into the list yet, like Chippy Flip. Sorry, Chippy Flip. You're coming into the list for the next time. Pretty cool. You presented to thousands of people at Las Vegas once, and it was the morning session on the last day. Oh, well, we'll put you someplace prominent, so people can. They're gonna see your work if you bring some stuff and put it up, so it'll be fine. If Booze made zombies, that's what I saw. That's hilarious. The one I used in grad school was owned by the geology department. Well, I'm in the geology department, so there you go. I'm a geologist. Yeah, the morning sessions are usually like the worst time. Marsh Madness. That's a good one. I like that studio. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and they just run around and try to collect stuff. Boba Binks, you're in the same group. Haven't been added to my auto shout out yet. I'm gonna make a note. Boba. So let's see if I actually could use the microscope bit. That would be nice. I've caught up a little bit with chat. These little things that you're seeing are a type of cledocerin. These are Kaidorus, and you can see there's two of them here. I think you can see them both. Yeah. Oh, now there's three. They're making. They're hanging out with each other here. You can see they've got a little foot they can stick out at the bottom of their valves down here. These two are, I don't know what they're doing. They're making friends with each other. They've got little dark spots for their eyes and a little beak that sticks off of their face. Unlike ostracods, the cledocerin have like a separated head that is associated with the carapace of their body. They have a hard carapace outside shell, and then it has an opening, like a slot at the bottom, or you can think of it as where the foot can go out, or they can eject stuff out the bottom. This one you're looking at from top down. Now it's sort of rotating around. And you can see they've got swimming arms, the swimming appendages that come off the front of their body that allow them to kind of like swim around. And I think they are very cute. I think that's a fair assessment of them. Here you can sort of see their intestines as well. You can see they've been eating stuff in the sample. That's what this curly-cued stuff is here with things moving around. And this is their foot that they're kicking around. And then their mouths are up here up here around the little beak part. So they take in food and then it all comes through here and comes out this side, right? Pretty nice, cute little organisms. These are usually eaten by fish, and they eat things like algae and detritus. This green thing that you're seeing that's running through the middle of the sample here, sorry, that thing's just totally bombed in on us. Look at this little chook. Can confirm their cuteness. I'm lurking, but I wanted to say hi. See what happens when you say hi? You got automatically shout out, little chook, because you were in my list of people I added to my little array. And I don't even need moderators anymore. I just have Lior on board. It does everything. This is spirogyra. It's a type of green algae, and you can see it has like a colonial lifestyle. Don't mind those things swimming around in the background. And they're characterized by having a helix-shaped ribbon chloroplast. It goes around the outside of the cells and runs through the length of the whole colony. Here you can sort of see it coil around like a ribbon. It looks like it's wrapped around the outside of it, like it's a candy cane or a barber pole or something, but it's actually on the inside. And they're very common in lake systems, the spirogyra colonies, and they actually get big enough that they can form these big clumps that you can see. So I hope you're doing well, little chook. I know you don't stream very much anymore, but it's nice to see you around. And then these are also colonies. These are colonies of diatoms right here. They are sort of ribbon colonies, diatoms that are probably in the genus Fragillaria. They live in these like long colonial systems where they're linked together. And that's a set of mostly dead cells right there, but you can see some diatoms here in the background as well that are still active and crawling around. That's a diatom. This one's actually crawling around in the sample right here. We're zoomed in right now at the 200 times magnification. That is a rotifer. It just poked itself into the field of view briefly. I'm going to zoom back out so you guys can see stuff that I see. That's a rotifer right there. You can see it has like a little tail-like structure. It's actually its foot. And then at its head, cilia that it's using to pull itself around. And if it sits still long enough, oh my goodness, there, if it sits still long enough, you'll be able to see it a lot more clearly. So you can see it's holding on with its little toes down here. Oops, hang on. Down here at the bottom, it has these little like toe-like things that it's using. That's its foot. And then the anterior head end, or the anterior end of it, is basically on the other side. And they do this often. They cling on to debris, and then they use their cilia around the top of their mouth area to kind of pull stuff towards their mouth. So they spin the cilia and basically gets yanked it towards them. Yes, and Spirogyra was also a jazz band. I believe it's one that had Chick Corea as a member of it. And then he's also done a bunch of his own jazz band things. You can see those guys just kind of burning through the samples occasionally. I don't know if they're responding to the light or if they just are rummaging through everything, or a little of both. So if we zoom out a little bit, you can get an overview. And if I just zoom in on an area, you can see there's a little diatom right there, right here, crawling around in the sample. Probably a navicula based on its shape and size, but it's hard to say. Without digesting them, the chloroplasts get in the way, and it makes it pretty challenging to figure out what you're looking at, which is why usually the first thing I do is digest the samples with either nitric acid or hydrogen peroxide. Try to get rid of all of the living material in the sample because it gets in the way. The other thing I would also say is that I'm used to looking at diatoms at much higher magnification. So if we zoom in, and we look at one of these little guys, there's a diatom right here. You can see the chloroplasts around the outside edges. We're still only at 400 times magnification, but there's an example of a diatom. It's probably Navicula. It's also possible that it's a nominees. They're little football shapes, right? So it's hard to tell. But Navicula would probably be my first guess for that one. A lot of the naviculoid diatoms have that sort of boat shape, and so it's a good first guess, but some characteristics you can see, if you zoom in close enough, you can see them. And so it's a little bit less certain for the genus. Look at that, my random, we got an anonymous cheerer. Thank you, anonymous cheerer, for your 1 bit. Somebody just wanted to give me 1 penny, which I appreciate. We'll take a penny. It's like I found it. Heads up for good luck. Turtles, hello. How are you doing? I also have this thing that just randomly shouts people out, and it happened to shout out science streams. If you like microscope streams. So if you're watching this thinking, wow, I wish I could see some other things like the insides of insects' brains, you could go watch that on Science Streams channel. They're probably streaming pretty soon or right now. I saw them, they were on for a long time yesterday. And they stream almost every day. So if you feel like you're missing out because you don't get enough from just me, and or Studio Cornix, and you're missing all of those cool microscope streams, then I could recommend that you check out any of the people in this list right here. Those are all good people to check in on. I noticed the other day, however, that I think Spider ID closed their account. I don't know if they've stopped streaming entirely, but I really liked Spider ID's streams. So it's unfortunate if they've stopped streaming into Twitch, unless they picked it up someplace else. Yeah, we're zoomed out. So I'm just going to roll around in the samples a little bit and look at some of the cool other things that we can find in here. This very long diatom that you see in the middle. Mr. Tannenbaum, hello. That's a diatom. I believe that's an ulnaria. Also, as long as we're here, you see this little wiggly thing right there? It's probably bacteria. It's probably a little colony of bacteria. So sometimes people ask me if you can see bacteria, and the answer is yes. There are these little ribbony things right here that are spinning around. Are they cool? I don't know. Maybe at this level they're fun to watch, but they mostly kind of look like blobs. So we can see them, but just can't see them very well. So not like we can the cledocerin that keep buzzing through the sample super fast. So this sample actually just came from the lake, and it's from shallow water. So most of the things we're seeing are benthic diatoms, but I don't know what that is that's pushing that pile of debris towards my sample. So hopefully hopefully it'll reveal what it is. I don't know what that, I have no idea what's going on right here. I don't know what this clump of things is, but I was going to talk about this. This is a colony of Asterionella formosa, which is plankton, and is not normally, it's normally like a little star-shaped thing. I have no idea what's going on right here. I have no idea what's happening. There's like a clump of stuff just moving around on its own, and that is not moving because I'm moving the screen. Let me see if I can figure out what it is. Oh wait. I was gonna say it could be the current, but I think what's actually happening is you see this guy right here, that's a diatom, and it is actually dragging all of this material along with it like a tractor. I think that's the diatom that's doing it. I think it's pulling this clump of stuff with it, and I'm pretty sure that's a diatom. But it would have been a good guess if it was a cyanobacteria, but I think it's actually a diatom. And it's just dragging that huge clump of stuff around, which is kind of funny. And then there's another one of those cledocerin up here at the top. But it's a very strong little diatom. It seems to be capable of dragging that whole clump of stuff around with it. Impressive, considering it's, I don't know, I don't usually think of them as being like really strong things that move stuff around. But I think it's a diatom. And here's another one of our little Kaidorus friends, being super cute and doing their little spinny dance. And you can see, you can see into it. This one's just pooping. Look, it's pooping. It pooped out a little bit. Now it probably feels a lot better. But there's its little feet. It has a big back leg that it uses, and it kicks stuff. And then normally the Kaidorus, as I mentioned, they have like 2 sets of eyes and a beak. And then you can see this is their digestive tract. You gotta take off. Okay, we'll see you. Have fun, studio. Get some, break that fast the way you need to there. And more soon on this. You're excited. Okay, cool. Well, at least I have some images of the Kaidorus, and they'll probably just be molts and skeletons by the time it gets to you. But the diatoms will probably still be alive, or mostly alive, if I send it tomorrow. But we'll look forward to seeing what you come up with for the artwork for it. There's some spirogyra in here, there's some ulnaria, there's some of these Kaidorus, that is the molt of a copepod. The copepod's not with us, but it molted and it left this ghostly shell of its outside part of its body right there. One thing that's nice about this is you can get a good sense of how much bigger copepods are than diatoms. That's a whole colony of hundreds of diatoms right there that are stacked up against each other in these like ribbon colonies, and that's just a molt of one copepod. These are single-celled organisms living in a colony, and that's a multicellular organism that eats them for a living as a way of surviving. So, pretty cool. So, I haven't seen any copepods in this actual sample. This was collected from the side of a boat ramp, which is actually the easiest way for me often to access lake sediments. There was just a clump of stuff that was sort of in the shallow water. Oh, that is something different. I don't remember. I don't know what that is. That is not something I recognize. Just a little brown thing in the shape of a football spinning around in the sample. Happens sometimes. Here's a little guy here. Let's see if we can catch it in the field of view. That's a cilia of some type. You can see the little hairs around the outside of its body pretty clearly. And I was hoping to highlight it, but it moved before I could get a chance to. You can see how busy they are. This is probably just looking for debris to consume. That's what they do a lot. Alright. Like, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm happy to answer questions about little weird things, as long as I know the answer. I don't know everything about all lake organisms, but if you have pressing questions, feel free to ask. You don't need to be an expert to be curious. And microscope streams are usually pretty chill, especially when we have living stuff in them that are zooming by at high rates of speed. Probably what I will do, I'm on the edge of the sample. I got right up onto the edge of the slide, and I think I got a little bit of water on my lens as a result. Here you can see there's a big clump of spirogyra in the middle of this thing. And it does have some diatoms sort of trapped in there with it. That is the skeleton of a cledocerin there, nested in that clump. It might have been an ostracod, but I think it's a cledocerin. And I'm probably going to need to dry off my objective anyway, so maybe just I'll let these little guys back into the bigger sample bag that I have, and I'll make another slide so I can get rid of the water that's on my objective. Consequence of being very close. Sarah Dance Painter, hello. How are you doing? It's nice to see that you're back streaming again, Sarah. And also, thank you for the raid the other day. I think you raided and then I didn't hear anything from you after you said you had to make some adjustments to hear. So I'm assuming maybe you had some issue with your computer. You're okay. You had no audio the whole stream. Aha. So you didn't hear me say that it was nice to see you again. It is still nice to see you. It's nice to see that you're back streaming. And welcome in for tonight. We're just looking at some material that I collected earlier today. Normally on Fridays are one of my busy teaching days, and all of last weekend I was on a field trip, and I was pretty burned out all week as a result of not having any kind of a break. So while field trips are nice, also just not having to work and not having to spend most of my day driving around, moving students from one place to another, and panicking about whether or not all of my lab and field equipment were going to work correctly is stressful. And definitely prefer not to have to do that on the weekend. But I really enjoyed taking kids out to the ponds. And a lot of the students have told me that they wish that the class had more lab time associated with it. And so I was talking a little bit with one of them today about why we don't have that as an option, which is partly because I teach a lot of classes, and trying to add a lab to what I teach would be very challenging. But we do have sort of lab time added to the class at the end, so the last 2 weeks of class are basically just lab time. You could hear no one and no one could hear you. Oh, for your whole stream too, not just for when you were in my channel. That's funny. But they could at least watch, right? So, what do I teach? That's a good question. Obviously I specialize in diatom paleoecology, and so my classes as a professor are usually some mix of geology classes and biology and ecology classes. And my main classes that I'm teaching this semester are a class called Lakes and Wetlands, which we basically just learn about how lakes and wetlands work, the physical, chemical, and biological processes that sort of function in lakes. And then I have a class that's just called Field Geology, which is basically like teaching people how to do field work and learning the field tools. And we actually did a bunch of field trips associated with it. That's my other Friday class that I normally teach, but somebody else is teaching it today because it's a team taught class. Those are undergrad classes, but the Lakes and Wetlands is a grad and undergrad class. And then it's like a combined, but there's 2 grad students and like 25 undergrads. And then I teach a class called Regional Paleoecology for graduate students. It's just me and 3 other people who are reading papers and discussing them. And that class has also reached a point where basically the students are just working on their papers. So now I don't have to do any kind of reading other than read their papers, and give them suggestions and help them with their writing style and that sort of thing, which is okay. I can work on that, and helping them is part of my job, so I enjoy that part. And then I'm also teaching a class as an extra class this semester that I would not normally teach, called structural geology, which is basically just about how internal Earth processes work, and create things like faults and folds and metamorphic rocks. This is a pure geology class, and I don't teach many classes that are just pure geology classes, and that's not my specialization, but I am teaching it this semester, and so I have to do a lot of prep time for that class because it's outside of what I normally teach. All the stuff that's in the background that's like ropey looking stuff is how do they work? Lava, good and bad. Well, it's a pretty serious class in terms of teaching people stuff, because it's a lot of mechanics, and so it's a lot of engineering aspects of math associated with how Earth processes happen. So I don't know that I could summarize it for you easily in a sound bite for Twitch, but there's a little wiggly guy in here somewhere. I just saw him come whizzing through. But it's a ton of work for me, so I'm glad there's only 2 weeks left of that class. So today was the last, second one, two. There's 2 more classes after today for that one, and then we'll be done with it. And I'm happy about that because I'm tired of teaching it. My students, one of the students in the class told me it's their favorite class, and I don't understand how that's possible. How a class that I don't even like teaching, and it's not my specialization, is one of their favorite classes. But they seem to enjoy it. So I think given enough time and patience, I probably could teach anything. But I really prefer to teach classes about lakes and diatoms and paleoecology, which are the things that I already know a lot about. Learning stuff in order to teach it to other people is a challenge. And there's our little guy. There's a little Kaidorus. He's darting around in the sample earlier. But also, it's been a long time since I really did a lot of geology, so those classes are a little bit outside of what I typically would teach. I've got some good news, which is, if I sit up a little bit, you can see I've got a Mustachio t-shirt on. And I mentioned this before, but we're having a coloring contest, and my daughter drew an image of a frog as a line sketch, and we put it in the Discord for my channel. And if you'd like to enter the coloring contest, you just need to join the Discord and download the image and color it however you want, digitally or with crayons or markers or colored pencils or whatever, and then it will be judged by my daughter, and the winner can get a gift certificate to Redbubble, which they could use to buy whatever they want, or there's also a slightly off-center version of Mustachio t-shirt, printed on a high-quality t-shirt, but when it was printed it was slightly off-center. And so the little guy on the screen right now is called Kaidorus, spelled like that, and it is a type of cledocerin, and they mostly eat diatoms and sometimes just pick up organic debris of plant matter and stuff like that, and a type of crustacean. Tim Kaidorus. If you like, his name is Tim. He seems very happy. This is the top view of the organism that we're looking at right here. That they look at from the top, and you can see they're sort of like using the spirogyra, the algae, the green algae, is sort of like a little monorail, and I've seen them do this before. They basically just run up and down the length of the some of these things as a highway, a little highway that they move up and down along to make them easy to get around, so they have something to grab onto. I think it's because the algae is a little bit easier for them to grip than the glass slides that they're in, because there's glass on the top and the bottom. What's moving it? Yeah, it has little feet. The Kaidorus they're like a kind of like a mixture between a flea and a clam. They're arthropods and crustacea, but they have a clam-like shell that goes over the outside of their body, and it doesn't open all the way like a clam's shell will open all the way. It just opens a little bit at the bottom, and their feet can go out, so they can open and close the carapace, which I think people sometimes say they're like little pants that they're wearing, basically, pant shells. And then their feet can come out, and they actually have little feet. They have, as most arthropods, they have segmented body parts, and they actually have little arms that they use to swim with as well. For some species, the arms are swimming arms, and some of these guys basically just crawl along the length of it. So you can kind of see, if I focus this perfectly, the shell's kind of rent open right now. Here's the inside, and you can see there's a tiny little opening on the back end of the valve. Briefly there, when it was flipping around, you could see there's two little knobs. That's actually the shell's, the valve being open in the back. And so here you can't really see it because it's in profile, but they walk up and down these things pretty commonly. Tiny World's fascinating and terrifying, yeah. I think it's mostly fascinating, but if you like, sure, it's a little bit scary. If they were bigger, they'd be scary. Speaking of terrifying things, I have a mission for the weekend. One of my longtime viewers used his channel points to make me put something on the SEM. And in order to do it, I've got to go travel about 2 hours south to Goose Pond, which I was going to go to anyway, and try to collect some bird images over the weekend. And because there's some cool birds down there, and this is my migration is starting. So I thought I would go down there this weekend, and then there's a pond down there that's filled with leeches. And so I'm hoping I can get down there while there's still little baby leeches, and that they've already hatched, and then I'm going to collect some of them, and hopefully without them attaching to me, and then we'll have some little leeches that we can look at in both the light microscope and the SEM, and I'm hoping that, oh, there's another one of them hiding right in there. Like he's in here, he's just chilling out. That we'll have the ability to look at some leech teeth, if we can get some of them to, if I can collect some of them, if I can find them. Last time we went there, we were trying to collect the core, and I had some students put a boat into the water, and when they pulled it out, it was full of leeches. So, alright, I'm going to make one more slide, and we'll look and see what we can find in it, because this one has pretty low on like cool things in it. It does have the same diatoms we saw before, spirogyra as before, and Kaidorus as before. We're seeing right there. Here you can see one of its little front swimming appendages is kind of being used to drag itself along the length of that. Alrighty, friends, you gotta go. We'll see you later, Sarah Dance Painter. Thank you for dropping in. Let's see. Oh, Miss Frizzle, I've been lurking while I set up my new TV. Totally second that about learning something in order to teach it. Yeah, it's a real challenge. I've been wanting to teach alternative school, but passed on an opportunity because I wouldn't be an effective physics teacher. You know, maybe not at first, but like I said, I'm not. Oh, there you can see him like dragging the length of the spirogyra through its body. It's not my specialization, and so I do feel like it's not something that I feel confident in teaching. But growth is discomfort always, and I feel like if you want to grow as a teacher, then and also as a scientist in my case, it always requires that you. Ooh, that guy went flying through there quickly. It always requires some discomfort if you want to grow, and I think that getting better at teaching concepts is sometimes it's the hard part. It makes your life more difficult, but I think in the long run it makes you better as a teacher to pick up and teach things that you don't normally teach. So honestly, while I think it is initially you might struggle and maybe you wouldn't be that great at it, one of the things I can say is if concepts are difficult for you and you're trying to teach it, those concepts are probably difficult for the students. And so, from the viewpoint of somebody who's trying to teach things that way, you actually have a little bit more power than you realize, which is you're in the same position that the students are. You're being exposed to some of this stuff for the first time, or at least from this angle at the first time. And so you can actually observe what's hard for you to understand. And then to teach it, you might actually come at it from a different angle as a result, because you don't have that basic background that they also don't have. So I think it's a little bit easier for you to say, well, this is how I sort of got to where I understand it. And I find that happens to me frequently in this class, among other things. Like some chapters, when I was reading them in order to write or discuss them, write the lectures or discuss them, I found that what I was confused by was probably something that my students would be confused by. And so it took me a long time to figure out what that thing is so that I could explain it to them. But in the long run, I feel like I could then explain it to them probably better than somebody who didn't have that that problem, because they wouldn't know. They don't recognize what it is that's hard about learning things. They're just so used to it, you forget. Or maybe you never knew what it was like to learn something that's completely outside of what you would be learning it that way, because you're always going to be comfortable with it at some point. Whereas if you're coming in for the first time and looking at it, you have a different set of objectives, and your viewpoint on things is different. So I find that it was helpful. And there's something to be said about teaching things that you don't normally teach. So that's my 2 cents on teaching. I'm sure that you're aware of most of that, though. But it's definitely a challenge, and I don't think people recognize how much work goes into to picking up something that you've never taught before and trying to explain it to other people. So my students, I sometimes would explain to them that for every 1 hour of class time, I spend 10 hours preparing for that class. And in a typical week where I'm teaching 3 times for an hour, that's 30 hours of prep time. And if I'm teaching 4 or 5 classes, that means I don't have enough time in the week to actually prepare all of those classes. So they better be something that I've taught before. If you're starting for the first time in a lecture, there's no way to produce something that is high quality that you understand and could teach in probably less than about 5 or 6 hours, even if it's something that you already are familiar with. So, but I don't think that students recognize that until they try to do it themselves. I mean, if they think about how much they work at trying to put together a 10 or 15 minute long presentation and how much work that is for them, and then try to figure out, like, okay, now if I was doing this for an hour long presentation, what would that look like? I think that would probably give them a bit of context for how much work is involved with it. And teaching is difficult because, you have people who want to ask you questions, and that you have to have a depth of understanding that you can actually answer it. So not seeing anything particularly exciting in here or new, but I'm just going to look around for a little while. There's a big clump of spirogyra here in the middle, and it's creating that sort of greenish cast. Definitely agree. I'm only in your second year, and I think I may try to move up senior campus and teach something other than biology whenever a position opens. Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things that I learned that I wasn't expecting is that because a lot of people, I teach more classes than many of my peers do because I'm at a smaller school and we have a smaller department. So like if I told my peers, oh, I have 4 classes this semester, they would freak out because they teach 4 classes in maybe 2 years. They might teach 1 class a semester. And the idea of having to teach 4 classes in 1 semester is just mind-boggling to some of them. But once you've taught it, I feel like it's not that hard to reteach a class. So it's always just the first time that's the challenge, and then maybe the 3rd time or something like that, because you realized enough of it needs to be changed and you know what you need to change in it. But the first time you teach it's always the hardest and requires the most amount of work, and then it's mostly revising it to try to make it a little bit better, or to find the things that didn't work and make adjustments. So and I almost always go through and revise my classes a little bit. So now it's more like maybe an hour or 2 prep time for every hour in class, which is not so bad. But it takes a long time to get it to that position where you only have to tweak it a little bit, and you still have to prepare it. So you still have to know what you're going to talk about and what you're going to say on every slide, or every assignment or whatever. So it's just like a giant clump of spirogyra in the middle with some diatoms mixed in with it, little fragilarioids, and then, oh, there's something. Hello. That is a gastrotrick. I don't know if you can see it very well yet, but we're going to zoom in on it. There we go. There's a little gastrotrick. It's hiding underneath everything. It looks like a little hairy slug, and there you can see the name gastrotrick means hairy belly. Still within life sciences, not physics, yeah. Chippy Flip, teaching a homework help class when I was a grad student gave me a glimpse of how much work it takes to make good lectures. Yeah, for sure. I get graduate students that I will give my classwork. Sometimes they have a PhD student and they need to teach a class, and so I'll give them my lectures, and they think at first like, oh, I've got the lectures, it'll be easy, and it's like, oh, I've got to actually prep every one of these lectures. It's not easy. Even if somebody hands you all of the exams and all of the lectures and everything's been polished pretty well, it's still not easy. It's still a lot of work, and generally speaking, I don't like, I'm a kind of a quiet person. I don't like talking a lot, which, is not obvious because on Twitch I have to talk constantly. But, like, most of the time I don't talk at all. And in the summer, if my wife and daughter went away somewhere, I could probably go like 2 days and not say a word. I would just sit at home and be happy and not talk to anybody. I would challenge myself to see how many days I could go without having to talk to anyone, not say a word, and not even open my mouth to do anything besides eat and breathe, because I prefer not to talk. I could just listen. That'd be fine with me. But most of my day and most of my job is spent talking. So, that's why I like to just sort of keep my streams sort of short, in the 2-hour range, because I just get tired of talking after a bit. What is this thing? What sort of impressed me about these samples is we didn't find very many rotifers. Wow, what is moving that? We didn't see a lot of rotifers in this stuff, and I usually find them all over the place when I look at clumps of algae in lake systems. We saw one, and it was one of the type that are kind of like the swimmers that go up and down. Samples. There's another diatom dragging a bunch of junk behind it. I don't know what you're saying, Squiz AF, but you're a couple of seconds away from getting timed out, so maybe stop spamming things in capital letters, Let's see. This is our first fully in-person year where we've got to teach everything, the scope and sequence, and there are learning gaps, so it's like everything is brand new this year, and I had to recreate so much. Oh yeah, this is rough, and I think on the students as well. I had to go back and reteach 7th grade standards that was missing before we could get into the high school standards. Yeah, I'm sure that that's the case. We're only allowed lowercase spam here? Okay. If you say so, Shadow. Spamming a bunch of stuff in a foreign language that nobody understands probably is not a reasonable thing to do as the first thing you do in a channel. I don't know who you're trying to impress, but I doubt it's working. If he spammed in lowercase, I probably would also complain about it eventually. And it is giving me an idea of what to add to my automatic chat monitoring Leorn board, which now shouts people out generally without me having to do anything, and shouts out raiders without me having to do anything. Hey, the little gastrotrick has come out of its nested in area back there. Stay out. Stay out. But I could set up something that would track when people were spamming stuff in all caps. It's a good point. There's a little gastrotrick. Oh, he almost ate a diatom. Did you see that? He flipped it around in his mouth and then spit it back out. Usually they're so fast that they're hard to keep in the field of view, but this one's actually, it's been okay. It's not being crazy. Normally I have to like chase him down with my Etch-a-Sketch skills. That's nice. Yeah, so this was a sample for the most part. Just been looking through materials that I collected earlier today, and I think we've seen everything in these samples, to be honest, or almost everything. I wanted to get some nice footage of it before I send it off to Studio Cornix. She's going to try to do something artistic with it, and then oh, here's something we haven't seen. There's a little paramecium-like thing right there. Those are the ones that walk around, like a little walking paramecium. You can see it's got like spiny, like little spiny cilia like there's two types of cilia, the kind that it uses to crawl around with and the kind that it uses to wiggle around the outside of its body. Perfect. It's a nice clean image of it before it decided to crawl back underneath a bunch of algae. Nice. Yeah, it spit it out. Like, how do I name this one? Just, we're gonna get rid of that thing. Whatever it was. It didn't fit in my mouth hole, which is the normal response. Does it fit in the mouth hole or not? For most of these organisms. And if we wait around longer, the ciliates will probably repopulate a lot of the sample because a lot of them grow with detritus. The more detritus there is, the more you see. And when it starts to decay, and the temperatures get a little bit warmer, like they are, starting to heat up in the sample, I think it activates some of them. Okay. So I feel like we looked at a lot of cool stuff and had a nice simple little stream looking at a bunch of organisms and algae here in the sample, and we'll probably call it a stream. A nice short evening stream before somebody notices that I've streamed and tries to raid me on a Friday night. I hope everybody out there is having a good weekend, and I want to thank everybody for hanging out. I've had a nice chill little evening stream with some nice questions and some nice conversation, and let's say we go raid somebody. That sounds like a good plan right about now. I'd like to mix it up, so I think probably today we're going to raid my friend Emily, who is a violinist and a guitarist musician. And I'd really appreciate it if you would stick around and check her out. Just give her a listen. I feel like there's a lot of musicians that I tune into on Twitch, and I'm confused as to why they don't have more followers. And Emily's one of those. She's hilarious, she's friendly, she's funny, and she's a great musician. So I'd be happy if you just stick around and give her a listen and see what you think. And then if it's not your stuff, that's fine, move on. But until then, and until next time, I'll see everybody later. We probably will be hanging out a little bit, and I'm sure Hannah's going to stream again tonight, so I'll probably be over in Hannah Rebecca Music's channel. And I didn't give Hannah a shout out yet, I don't think. It's here. If you don't know my friend Hannah, I'm almost always over there, and she's doing like a stream every single day. So I'll probably be hanging out in her channel a little bit tonight. And also, Pacific Plankton is not here tonight. She's my usual moderator. She's been replaced by my robot, Leorn board now, for the most part. But she's out camping and doesn't have access to the internet tonight. So if you'd give Pacific Plankton a follow, I'd really appreciate that as well. All right, everybody, thanks again for hanging out and for asking questions and chatting.